Welcome to this Times Techies Webinar. I'm Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Akhil George. The two of us will moderate this discussion that we are having in association with Avalara. India is rapidly emerging as a significant global player in SaaS, software as a service, and in the cloud computing landscape. As businesses around the world accelerate their digital transformation efforts, India has positioned itself as an ideal hub for sales, technology innovation, and customer support for SaaS and cloud solutions. Today, we're going to particularly focus our discussion on the increasingly important role that India plays in global sales of SaaS and cloud-based software. And for that, we have with us two very seasoned professionals. We have with us Manav Garg. We've known Manav for many years now. Manav founded Eka Software in 2004 and built it into a global provider of commodity management platforms. Eka had developed enterprise SaaS platforms to unify procurement, supply chain, treasury, and payments. Manav sold the company last year to US private equity firm STG. Manav is a founding partner at Together Fund, a venture fund that focuses on startups in SaaS, enterprise software, developer tools, open source software, cloud native infrastructure, and API first businesses. He has backed more than 30 startups. He's also the founding member of SaaS Boomi. I think he's calling it Boomi AI, SaaS AI. What did he say? Boomi AI, you said, right?
Yes, right.
Boomi AI, a community of entrepreneurs shaping India's SaaS industry. They just finished a 3-day event in Chennai. I think he's back from Chennai now in Bangalore. Welcome, Manav.
Thanks for having me, Sujit. Always good to talk to you.
And we also have Job Sam Koshy. Job is Director in Asia Pacific, Head of the Partner Group at Avalara. Avalara develops and delivers cloud-based compliance solutions for various transaction taxes. Job's role is to lead strategic initiatives that accelerate regional expansion, empower teams to execute impactful partner go-to-market strategies, and elevate Avalara's presence across the Asia Pacific region. He has a history of creating high-value partnerships and skillfully aligning global visions with local market demands. Prior to Avalara, Job had stints at Oracle, Coursera, and LinkedIn. Welcome, Job.
Thanks, Akhil. Glad to be here.
Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Sujit and I will put them to Manav and Job. So why don't we jump in? This first question, either of you can take this. India's role in global SaaS has shifted dramatically over the last decade, just as you were saying. So what's fueling that momentum, and what are global leaders noticing now that they didn't do before? Manav, you want to start?
Sure. I've been associated with the global B2B industry almost 20 years now. I think 2004 when I started Eka, focus on enterprise software. Those were very, very early days. We hardly had about 10, 15 companies in the ecosystem who were building products from India for the global markets, and very few for the enterprise global market in the world. I think the real journey started, obviously, Zoho was the one which also started around the same time in 2010. They did a brilliant job in creating an inbound motion at a very, very value-based pricing. And 2010 is when Freshworks started, when Vish came out of Zoho and started Freshworks, which is kind of started off a cloud computing era in India, when Indian firms started building cloud software. By 2015, we had about only 40 companies, just to give you an idea. That's how actually SaaS only started in Chennai. We all got together, Grish, me, Avinash and few others, ChargeBee, Krish from ChargeBee and Suresh from Kissflow. And we thought we should create a community which we can all learn from each other, discuss what went right, what went wrong with each other every month, every week, and just learn through a lot of mistakes that we all making. So that time we were 40 companies. 2018 we had about 800 companies. Still, SaaS wave was not fully baked in. Then the COVID came in. I think that was a fundamental shift which brought in. So I'll list a few points why it happened. So before 2018, the buyers were not used to buying online. All of us always bought things. We went to shops here. The B2B business always, I had to travel to Minnesota, New York, Hamburg, and sit with the customers for 1 week, run the pilots and convince them that this is a demo and therefore they should buy the product, right? So it was a long sales cycle. And inbound motion also was a bit slower at that point in time. Though Zoho and Freshworks continued to grow because SMB also started coming into picture with cloud, right? So therefore, these two points came together. One is that buyers become very comfortable buying software online, especially if you're selling $50,000 and above. Second, the opportunity of cloud software went from Fortune 500 to Fortune 5 million, which means now SMBs are also buying cloud software, because when you start a company, you start with accounting software and email software, maybe a CRM software, and that's how the entire ecosystem started growing. So cloud gave a big flip to the SaaS ecosystem. So by 2021, we had about 3,000 companies in the ecosystem, and the wave really penetrated to tier 3, tier 4 towns like Surat, Nasik, Chandigarh, Bhopal, and places like that. And today we have 6,500 companies in the ecosystem, which is humming. We produce software across the board. Our market share, I think total revenue of SaaS companies is about 70 billion odd, maybe 80 billion now. We have about 1% market share of a global enterprise software market, which is pretty big from where we have come from. So it's only, I would say, a decade-old journey from 2015 till now. And now I would leave with thought process that now AI has come in, right? Since last 2 years, AI came in. It's the first time, and through Together Fund, which is now only AI focused, what we are seeing is that we saw about 3,000 companies in the last 2 years. 2,000 have been only AI companies. So we have caught on to actually AI wave pretty fast. We're still behind, almost a year behind the US and maybe China also. But I think we're catching pretty fast, especially in the application space, application and few infra tools. But the fundamental reason is that buyers are very comfortable buying software from Indian providers. And number two, SMBs also come into mix. So that makes a lot of sense to go through inbound motion. And third, if you're building infra tools, India has 5.5 million developers also, right? They also consume a lot of software themselves to make the task easier. So these three things are coming together, and that's what the whole ecosystem is growing.
But you're selling mostly to the US. Is US the biggest market?
US is the biggest market, I would say 70% of the market. Having said that, last 4 or 5 years, companies like Capillary, Darwinbox has also seen substantial business being built in Middle East, Asia, and India as a market put together. So this three combined, actually, you can create a $100 million plus business now in revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. And India also, I think India has also started consuming software. Zoho and Freshworks has substantial India revenue. Salesforce has just crossed $1 billion revenue in India, I suppose. That is led by financial services primarily and some large pharma companies who bought CRM market. Even Slack had a very, I would say, about $200 million revenue from India. So yeah, we don't know. So MNCs have been doing good business in India, and Indian market is still smaller from a global scale, but it's a substantial market, much bigger than it was before.
Okay. We'll discuss some more of that a little more later. Job, you want to add to that?
Yeah. So when I think of India's SaaS momentum, right, it's fueled by, there's this perfect mix that I call it. There'll be, the booming startup ecosystem. There is mature tech talent. There is supportive government policies. And again, like Manav mentioned, the rapidly growing cloud infrastructure, right? So if you look at that evolution, and I was reading this NASSCOM report, early 2000s dominated by IT and services outsourcing. SaaS is still in its early stages, experimental stages. Fast forward that to 2015, where SaaS has reached a 1 billion market from an India point of view, right? And initial rise of those SaaS-focused startups, adoption has begun. To 2020, we see that movement from what I called as 1 billion to 3.5 billion. And the latest I read was that if you look at the coming years, India SaaS projections are to be 100 billion. So if you look at those numbers, you will clearly see that India, and actually that statistic also said that India was poised to be the second largest SaaS market in the future. So from an Avalara point of view too, the story is very similar. We started with, so company was founded in 2004, 2006. We have an engineering backend team that evolved eventually to be to run product management. That moved to run GTM on its own. So we have seen our own evolution where, starting from a small back office kind of a setup to really leading go-to-market motions, not just for APAC, but globally too. So yeah, just piggyback on what Manav said, seeing the same things, but in a different context.
Okay. Big growth happening. Coincidence, I guess, that Avalara and Eka were both founded around 2004. Okay. So tell me, I mean, both of you said, I mean, India is becoming a major, I mean, you're even driving sales out of here. So how is that becoming possible? I mean, driving core go-to-market strategies out of, give us, how are India teams managing to do that? Okay, Job, you go ahead.
Sure. So again, piggybacking on what I said earlier, there has been a maturity from a SaaS point of view where, like I said, right, initially from a back office task-oriented mindset to then running processes to then eventually owning functions, right? So that journey has been something that we have really seen. So I call it, maturity in that in the SaaS world. And how does that contextually, how did that really work for us? Maybe I can give a two-pronged approach. One is in terms of, from an efficiency and quality of work point of view. For example, our sales development team started off with just accepting and managing chili piper requests of demand generation, right? There were some requests coming, started working on that. They were coming through the web chat window, working on those requests, small demand generation efforts, to now leading the entire sales development function for various regions. So that's the kind of maturity that we have seen from a go-to-market sales development point of view. Now, shifting gears from that standpoint to complexity, not just quality of work, but complexity, our account management function has evolved to building and servicing partnerships and customers based from India. So if you look at our customer base, we have a large customer base. Our ASPs would be low, but we have a large customer base. So it's a lot of volumes. And so if you think of putting a headcount to servicing a small set of customers, that ends up being not a scalable solution at all. So with teams here who are servicing and account management with customers based out of multiple other regions, we have seen that even that complexity of work can run out of India, and not just like we said, back end work. So when we talk about core GTM function, that's how I would think of it. One, in terms of quality of work, and second, in terms of complexity of work. Both we have matured, and that's what we see as an organization. Yeah.
Manav?
Yeah. So I think so let's divide the sales into 2-3 components, right? So you have either sales motion for global enterprise sales, which means you are selling feet on the street in the US, Europe, and Australian or Asian markets. Second is a desk-based motion where you're doing your sales development representatives or account executives are calling and doing the low value sales, which I call less than $50,000, primarily around $25,000 or less than $25,000 qualify for desk-based motions. So the actual seeding of this entire call-based outbound motion started with Oracle actually in India, way back in 2000s, early 2000s, especially from Koramangala office. They started building the office where you divide the sales into these functions. So you have, the lead generation team can obviously make outbound calls, because even before a lot of tools arrived, that was a primary. When I started in 2004, that's what we used to do. We just take a directory and call the customers in Europe, US, Asia, everywhere. And the cold calling really worked. It works today also, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, it does work. It's probably the most effective medium of sales even till today, because that human-to-human connection does magically work well. Though it looks very archaic, but it does really well. So entire cold calling can be done from India. So it's almost 25 years since India has actually been doing cold calling. So I think that is very mature now. There are multiple institutes also who actually train on SDR function, that is sales development representatives, who can actually then call, and there are playbooks that are evolved very, very well. So once you generate the lead, it goes to typically an account executive. who will then walk you through the product and walk you through the offering, and then try to, if you are doing a desk-based or inbound motion where customers are coming to you, and then they'll be able to close account. That's what the models are. Zoho, Freshworks, they are the company built on that particular model. And that scale is huge. Zoho has some 10,000 people or more. Freshworks has 4,000-5,000 people now. So that model really worked really well in India. And that is and that's how now Salesforce have a big workforce in India doing that as well.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to enterprise sales, it gets a bit complex. You have a pre-sales executives who are actually solution consultants who are walking through demo, through products, and what my offering is. And then you have a combination of outbound callers and people on the ground, which is in the US and the geographies. So pre-sale, even for ACA, we ran our entire lead generation and pre-sales from India. Then lead get passed on to the people on the ground in the geographies, and they can then go and meet the customers and close the deal. So that pre-sales function is also running from India now for most of the companies, because, as I said, there's a massive shift in behavior after COVID, where buyers are very comfortable. Like we are doing this on Zoom, right? It was not possible in 2018-19, right? So that on Zoom, a person from India can actually walk you through the product demo for half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, multiple times. And when you're ready to sell, somebody can go and talk to Sujit and saying, okay, so that is a phase, since you're investing in the company and not just the software that you're buying from the company. So that is working. So therefore, India is now a pretty good hub for pre-sales function, outbound calls, inbound motion handling, product marketing, developed, digital marketing is here. So that's how you can build a company from India. Quite a lot of things are done. And MNCs have also taken to it, not only Indian companies. Started with Indian companies, started with Oracle, and the Indian SaaS companies actually follow this model.
Okay.
And now the large MNCs are coming in, who are building this.
I see. All of these channels, is it?
Yeah, because the talent is there. See, the biggest issue was the talent or the skill availability. Talent we always had, but the skill was not developed. So when so many companies are coming, the skill is getting developed massively now.
And Manav, very interesting that you're talking about the Oracle story, because just before you joined, Sujit and I were chatting, and we were talking about just exactly that, right? I remember during my Oracle days, when we had a new joiner, they would get a script, they would get, board line numbers. Just to get into the rigor of making those calls, they would just call board line. And when you do that for about a month or two, you make it your own. That script is no longer the company script. It's become, you've imbibed your own personality to that script. And it's really interesting to see how, all this could be done from India servicing to other regions, especially the US.
And now with AI SDRs coming in, which is AI sales representative, it will be a combination of the AI and the human in the loop. So
okay. Okay, we'll come to that a little later. But Job, you're also saying no, Zoom is used a lot, is it, for all these things now?
I mean, like Manav was saying, right? Like, if not for COVID, I think the silver lining that COVID brought in was to believe that we don't need to be face to face for every conversation, right? We can use such setups and still have really fruitful and productive discussions. We can move the needle when it comes to business, not to avoid the physical nature that definitely is still useful, but from a scalability point of view, like I can be in another meeting until our meeting started, and I can just hop on and we can do this for an hour, and I can go back to the next thing. So there is a lot of this is more of a scalable, and it has become a reality that has set in and become a new normal, like we would call it during the COVID days.
I think the fundamental way we build trust with each other has changed. The previous way of building the trust was meeting, breaking the bread, having a drink with each other, and that's how you trust each other. With COVID coming in, there was no option, and tools like Zoom or Google Meet came in, and the fundamental way we do trust is very different. So therefore, product or service start taking center stage in a discussion, and then that's how the trust start getting built, and that proved to advantage of India.
Okay. I'm very surprised. I didn't know about this cold calling working so well. I mean, it still works. See, I now most of us have Truecaller now, and if you think it's some spam or cold call and all that, we actually don't even take the call. But you're saying in these kind of cases, people actually pick up calls and listen to you and all that, is it?
I will, I think, try this out. If you are looking for a product or a service,
Aha.
okay,
Okay.
you will entertain the call even till today. If the
Aha.
Truecaller, you will, if the Truecaller will show I am calling from Eka or Freshworks or Zoho, and
Okay.
if you are the person tasked to evaluate a CRM product,
Yeah.
you will definitely take the call. I can give you 99% accuracy.
Yeah.
So that's the simple solution, right? So instead of you going and searching, I am coming to you saying, Sujit, okay, you're looking for a CRM solution. Oh, saying I'm anyway evaluating. I have to anyway do it. Okay, here this guy will do it for 4 5 minutes. What's going to cost you?
Yeah, and there's definitely a good way of doing it and a not so good way of doing it. So of course we are talking about the right way of cold calling, but I am a firm believer and an advocate of cold calling. Still works and runs really well. Yeah.
I think
Uh,
also remember the code calling is also the sort of air cover is given by the branding, right? So
Yeah.
you are aware of who's calling, right? For example, you will definitely take a call from Google or a Microsoft.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of brand cover also goes along. It's not just cold calling. When we say cold calling is a primarily sales motion, but you typically give a brand marketing cover alongside with it.
okay. 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 And you said there's an institute. There are institutes and all which are training people now on this, is it?
Yeah, Bangalore,
Uh-huh.
in Bangalore.
Ah, okay. They train you on how to do cold calls and things like that.
Yeah, SDR training it's called.
Ah,
And Akamai also has a massive cold calling center in India. Massive, 3,000 people or maybe 5,000 people now.
okay.
They also contributed a lot on, a lot of people came, alumni came out of that also, actually, who build large cold calling or sales driven centers, lead generation centers.
Okay. 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 And balancing local context with global strategy, how do you do? I mean, there are differences in time zones and all that. What?
You typically run shifts like typically any service. So you run shifts, you train them on cultural context, like Job was mentioning. It is you have to train them and do in the right way so that you don't mess around with the cultural context of that geography that
Yeah.
you're coming in. So there are timings in which you call. So there are a lot of nuances to this business, or to this method of working. So there are timings when it works, right? Typically in the afternoon it works the best because you have gone through your day's work. So 2 to 5 is typically the best in the
Afternoon for the
US also.
market. US. Okay. Uh-huh.
It, and you will see also, we are also much more tuned to take the call in the early evenings rather than taking the call in the morning because you're going through your daily motion. Then how do you script it? How do you be very polite if you say, okay, I'm busy right now? Then the politeness factor starts. So there is a full, very, very nuanced technique now. And I think India has mastered that. So I think cold calling works really well from India now.
Really, India's master.
Yeah.
John, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I've also seen the other side, right? Where there are US based organizations who have particular frameworks and they do a lift and shift. Now, that lift and shift exactly would not work because there is no localized execution flexibility, right? So, to what Manav said, and that's a very important piece, that global frameworks that are well defined are very important, but they need to be paired with the localized execution flexibility. And that I've seen across multiple organizations done it not so well and then done it so well. So in my portfolio with Avalara APAC, my core objective is always to ensure that, hey, the frameworks that have worked for us in the US and the EMEA regions are great, but how do we make it really centric to, and even when I say APAC, there is a context, India versus ANZ versus ASEAN, right? So how do we pair that? Localization is a very important piece.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so I think most people would be fascinated to hear about how effective cold calling still is. What happens when AI enters the picture? We're going to have these AI systems cold calling each other now. And especially, is India going to be poised to have some advantage in this new scenario?
Yes, AI is already beginning to call. If you see, even if you will be receiving a lot of calls,
Yeah.
banks in India have already adopted it, for example, right? So you will see a lot of them will call you in a little bit more synthetic voice. AI is still not there. I think it's very, very early stages. still the effectiveness of AI in a lot of high value cold calling is not there. Where it is working is in the customer support. For example, when you are calling for your airline ticket has to be changed. So all there, I think a lot of customer support use cases have come on the inbound calling. That's where AI is beginning to work. AISDR, a lot of companies are working on it because you need much more human voice. You need much more context in a conversation, right? Sometimes you may not even talk about the business to start off. You may just want to chat about 1 minute about the weather or whether your train was late today to the work. So I think that context building is still not fully there. So I think, but it will get there. I think human is now getting better and better. Still a bit early. So when that happens,
suddenly effective voice AI might come very suddenly.
that's right.
Yeah, and the other side of this would be that B2B buyers itself are evolving. All right. So there's a statistic that says that buyers are nearly 70% through their buyer's journey before they get on to the first sales call with that company. Right. So AI can also help with when a particular prospect comes on to the website. How can they really get that personalized focus on what they're looking for instead of them having to scroll through all the pages and really see? So there's that aspect of how can AI come into that 70% of the pre-work they will do before getting onto the sales call, so that that can be attractive and lucrative for them to understand, is this the best fit? And then get into a sales call where, then there's more fine tuning to how can this really work out in terms of all the other aspects.
Lead generation, is that what you're talking about? Even there, it will help a lot.
Right? Talking about even pre-lead generation, right? It will evolve into lead generation based on what they click, and they'll come into the systems and all of that. But even prior to that, they'll be doing their own research, right? 70% of the research is done before they come on to before the first conversation with the actual company they're interested to from an offering point of view. So how can AI really customize and answer what they're looking at? So if they come to, for example, what we want to, or for any website, we come onto a platform, you can ask a question, this is what I'm looking at. And how can the AI bot really focus on take them to the actual page or give them the answer of what they're really looking at?
Could it even find out even before they come to the website? Could it scan the net or something like that and figure out, okay, this person might be, or this company might be looking?
Of course, right? Of course. I mean, a simple chat GPT prompt can give you that answer. You don't even need to, that even would come into pre stages of coming onto the company website.
Okay. So, Manav, you see a lot of Indian SaaS companies you're looking at these AI options?
I don't think there's any other option with the company. So they are all looking to see how they enter into the AI wave. I think we have two set of companies. The companies who are getting started now, or in the last 6 months to 1 year, they are AI native. So they are thinking, okay, how AI will fundamentally change the way you build the product and the needs and care to the needs. There's a large set of companies, which is at 6,000 odd companies, right, which started in between 2015 till now, till 2024. So they are thinking through how to pivot to this AI wave. And I think that is what is going on right now. In the first 1 year, we saw people who were still really skeptic whether AI wave is real or not. But now, 2.5 years into the AI wave, I think everybody is fully convinced. And I'm seeing a massive focus by existing SaaS companies to one way or other go into the AI.
Which areas are they looking at particularly for use of AI?
So I think AI is both internal and external. So internal is a lot of efficiencies coming in, right? People are saying now, if I'm a 100 people company or 500 people company, I don't have to hire more because I'm able to generate the efficiencies. Now, efficiency generated in the customer support, in the code writing, AI is becoming better and better writing the code, right? So that's where you don't need so many developers going forward. And that's also seen if I juxtapose with the new companies that are coming, the teams are really small, like 3 people, 5 people, and they're able to build the first version of the product, get to even few million dollars in revenue. So therefore the internal teams are shrinking. So therefore the headcount growth is not happening. That's the internal efficiency. So the larger existential question for them is the workflow or the business they were automating. Will the business fundamentally change, right? If you're giving software to a BPO, now BPOs may not exist in the form they existed before, because BPO will get disrupted with AI coming in areas like customer support, sales functions, marketing functions. So now they're thinking through how will the workflow changes, and therefore how do I have to change my software or my offering therefore. So these two levels people are changing, but change is always hard, as you know, right? So that's what we are going through right now.
Yeah.
Some of this will be agentic AI and all that, is it?
Agents are everywhere. So when we talk about AI, it's primarily agent today.
Agents.
Agents are not fully reliable in the production system as yet. You know, there's a lot of talk on agents right now. Agents, a lot of enterprises are testing agents right now. But still, it's still a black box, right? You tell the agent to go, okay, find me a summary of Sujit on YouTube and automatically send the email. You still have to do what the agent is doing. The reliability and accuracy has to be tested. So I think in the first phase, we'll see agent plus human working together. Maybe agent can do 30% of the work. Human can still come and check. For example, if I ask agent to compose email and send it to you of this sorts of webinar, it will do. But I would still want human to check before the email is going out. So I want to make sure it is going correctly. So in the first wave, we are seeing agents plus human coming together. Agents probably in most cases are between 30 to 50% of work they're able to do. So that's the efficiency we're generating, approximately 30% on an average. And humans are still doing 70% of the work. So as we progress into more, models become more and more intelligent, and we move towards AGI, artificial general intelligence at a large scale, I think that's where when you will see most human work. The repetitive tasks actually can be automated very easily.
Oh, no, I just want to ask you. I mean, there's all the stories that Indian SaaS companies are finding it difficult to reach out to enterprises in the US and the West generally. I mean, so how are those things changing now? Are we becoming better at sales and all this? Will AI help there?
Yeah, so Eka was enterprise, so I did the hard work of building company, which is all enterprises. But in general, I think as a country, culturally, we are not really sales oriented culture, right? So we don't have that deep talent in sales, enterprise sales, number one. So most of the companies now who are selling to the US, one of the founders are relocating to the US, number one.
They are sorry.
They're relocating to the US very early on. So therefore, they are working like a US company. And then you hire the sales talent and the geography. So most work is right now going in. So where we have moved from 2015, where there's no knowledge of how to sell, at least I had some knowledge at that time because my personality was very sales oriented. To 2024 today, I would say the playbooks are formalized now. So the playbook is what? Playbook is you create an offering. Founder will start traveling to the US, does few of the sales himself or herself, get to let's say $1 million in revenue. Moment you start touching, you will think, okay, I've got a product market fit. Now let me relocate to the US and then start hiring the US team there. So that's the model. So you essentially become a US company basically in all senses.
Okay. There you really need feet on the ground in some ways, is it?
Yeah, if you're doing large enterprise deals, you have to have feet in the ground or be very close to the customer.
Be close to the customer.
Even, yeah, you can hire account executives also. So you do a combination of some account executives in the US and some in India, and that's how it works. But you will need to be close to the market and the customer, therefore.
Okay. Akhil?
Okay. Maybe we can look at, are there any cultural traits or working styles that give India-based sales team a global edge? I also wonder if just us knowing English so well is also an advantage in itself that other countries might not have, like China and Japan. Job, you wanna?
Yeah, sure.
Any cultural traits?
Yeah. So, culture is, I think, used and abused a lot. So I think as companies grow and build global teams, one of the main things to focus on is to codify what culture is needed, right? Because otherwise, culture can be a broad term. It means different things to different people. But culture, from a company point of view, especially as it grows, needs to have an intentional focus. So, for example, at Avalara, we follow traits known as the OPA focus. And when we call it the OPA focus, basically each of those letters attribute or symbolize a particular trait. So O for ownership, P for passion, A for adaptability. Now, again, it's easy to create that and then drop the ball there, right? So how do we really ensure that this gets into the fabric of the organization? So one of the ways we do it is when it comes to even early stages of hiring somebody, that's a metric that we look along with, the skill side of things. Then when it comes to career growth within the organization, that's a metric that is used. When we look at promotions, that's a metric that we use. In fact, we had a town hall earlier in the year where our leaders, our top executives, were called out based on each of these traits, on what how they symbolize these traits, and an example was given. So I think that's very important from a codification point of view. Now, to your question, for India sales teams, I think India sales teams broadly are a combination of, from a trait point of view, combination of adaptability, resilience, ambition, empathy, which kind of gives a rounded ownership spirit. So, and that helps with catering to diverse global clients, right? Because it's not like, hey, here are 3 things you need to do. Remember when I was talking about the task-oriented point of view, it's about how quickly can you adapt to meet that global audience? How's resilience in the picture? For example, when a client is going through a tough situation from a job point of view, how do we empathize? How do we lean in? And then the ambitious side of sales, which is very important, right? Because you have to hit your targets. Your objective is you're there to grow the revenue of the company. So I would say we should not leave cultural traits to be just a broad thing. Specify them to what it means to the company, and further specify them to what it means to different functions within the company. So it's very clear that these are success metrics for the company.
So you have a training process for all this?
We do. In fact, so because it's so imbibed in the fabric of the company, you can't do without the training. So you have to go through it. I am forced to do it. Like my team is scaling up in leaps and bounds. And so for every interview, I measure the behavioral side of it through these traits. So if I don't know it, then I will have to learn it. There are questions that are attributed to understand which of these traits can you measure. So for example, when you're talking to somebody, you get a sense that, hey, this role requires ownership. So what are the questions I can ask to understand the ownership level that this person can take? So we break it down to that minute level of even questions that can be asked to understand cultural traits.
Okay. Manav, you were saying in India, we are not really salespeople, Indians. So what? A lot of training required?
I think what we're doing is a very small portion of sales right now. So if you look at it from overall, the sales and marketing spend on salary globally is $1 trillion. Just give you the scale of, and 80%, 90% that is salary spend. So 800 billion is a salary spend of sales and marketing people around the world globally. India is still a very, very small portion of that. So it's a good start for India from last 2 decades, from where we were almost negligible to some kind of early success that we are getting at scale. And what is coming to us as a favor is, of course, we are a very young nation, right? So therefore, we are able to mold people through training programs. And then when there's a lot of cultural context is also happening, because Indo-US corridor has also become very, especially if you look at Bangalore, Chennai, that corridor to the US is very, very well known now. A lot of people travel, they pick up the cultural context and nuances really well. A lot of GCCs have come to India, right? Bangalore, if you see headlines everywhere, there are thousands of people. I was with AC Nielsen team 3-4 months back. They're massive centers they're opening, and very fast, like 3,000 to 5,000 people in 6 months' time. So I think that has created that very good cultural melting pot where both sides are able to understand each other much better, and massive young talent pool which is hungry and willing to learn. But still, as a global, I want to set the global context. We're still very tiny as compared to global context. When I said US is a sales and marketing nation, there everybody's a salesperson, right? So they're born with that skill.
Yeah, they're very entertaining also. Yeah, sometimes when you go for these tourist packages and all that, they really make it all very fun. And
yeah.
And Sujit, there's a reason for that, right? Like if you look at education, for example, in the US, presentation skills, for example, is taught in those early years. Because in our education system, or traditionally in the educational system at least, presentation skills is something that is taught when somebody comes into the workforce, right? And then that's the starting point. So I think there are those foundational elements that that could attribute to why, when it comes to facing a client, facing a partner, there'll be a reluctance there. But I see those things changing, right? If you look at some of the cultural traits of the youth today, they are digitally savvy, they are globally aware. All of those aspects are really coming in. So I bet big on the young workforce that we have today to really change that trend.
Okay. I've also heard this being said that I mean, for a successful startup, you need a techie from Bangalore and a business guy from the north or Delhi or something like that. I think the northern guys are probably a little better at selling themselves.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me the other day, you can have all your sales frameworks, but to have the sales skills that a Gujarati businessman would have, your frameworks would fall flat on its face because they are just the experts at it. So, to what you said, very true.
So any one sales process or system you build that helps scale faster without adding complexity? Job, if you can think of something.
A few things come to mind, but if I can talk about one function that we started off last year, which was very similar to what Manav was talking about, what I've done earlier at Oracle too, is like we have the inside sales. I started the inside strategic alliance function, where we cater to global partners and not just customers. Now, the back context to that is we are a partner. Avalara is a partner first company. So 70% of our business is driven through partnerships, right? So when you have that volume of partners, there is your top tier, which will always get, the white glove approach. And there will be the long tail of partners because of the thousands number that's there, which can get ignored and not get that focus. So this inside strategic alliance function that we set up was to ensure that long tail partners that we have are taken care of. And the question would be why? And the why is because the top tier partners that we have today may not be the top tier partners tomorrow. So unless we're taking care of our long tail partners and fast tracking them to grow in their own businesses, and that we gaining from that success, we are not setting up a business that is future proof. We are being very short sighted to just take care of, our 80% or 20% of our partners who's driving the 80% of the business. So no complexity there because it's a function that is there to give that kind of a white glove approach to our longer tail partnerships. But at the same time, it helps us to adapt and scale faster and move partners who have really good potential to the top tiers that we have.
Okay. Manav, anything that you've seen which?
Yeah, so I think one process, especially when you look at the product sales or software sales, the product demo is a crucial part of it. I think if you train on then one process really, really well, how to really say, how to present your product in a polished way, that makes a lot of difference in the conversion of the sales. Product demo is almost about 40-50% of the sales process.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have limited time to evaluate the product.
Right.
If I get a HR software for you or a publishing software to you, you will not have time to continue to play with. So the way I showcase a product to you and the way I walk you through that established a lot of trust. That's what we're talking about. See, the sales process is nothing but a process of establishing a trust between two organizations and two individuals, right? People buy from people, or they often say that. So the way you will establish the process is the product or services at the heart. So the trust will get established if I really present it well to you and really answer all your objections and the question and your pain points. So I think that training on then one process, I found it to be the most effective part of the sales process.
Okay. And what are some tricks there to create a really good?
I think it is once somebody cracks what really works, it's just the training and training and training. I think it is what I call finesse. I think a lot of people are able to give the product demos, but the finesse is not there. So I think the last 10% is like, chipping the wood and giving the last 10% of sharpness. I think that is where a lot of focus has to come as to, did you send the presentation before? Did you talk to the pain points clearly and showcase how pain point getting solved, how the after sales will work? So this give you all the comfort that human look for in a partner.
Okay.
How are B2B buyers themselves evolving? And what does that mean for sales teams selling globally from India? That's another angle to it, right? Joe?
Yeah, I touched upon it a little bit. So I'll speak briefly here, and Manav should share his thoughts on how he's seeing it too. But like I said, right, if 70% of buyers are are getting into that decision-making process of who to go with before actually getting on to talking with somebody from that company, then that itself tells us that B2B buyers have evolved, right? Instead of earlier, you go to a car showroom, the salesperson needs to educate end-to-end us on that. Like nowadays, you would know which car you're going in to buy when you go into the showroom, and the salesperson will need to really customize to see what, apart from the car buying experience, does he need to focus on to make that sale really customized, and you having you feeling good about it and not having buyer's remorse after buying the item, right? So, and cloud has transformed selling into a very continuous, collaborative, and a highly data-driven activity. Because like, for example, B2B buyers have evolved to be highly personalized. They want more data-driven interactions than a pushy salesperson just pushing them to buy their product. They want seamless experience. So all of this adds up to, how is your digital discovery working out really well? So that leads you to getting the right set of what we call ideal customer profile or ideal partner profile to come to you, and then you closing out on that business with them and being sticky with them, because retention is an important piece. So I would say it should start not with just the sales process, but it should start much earlier on the content and the information process. And that being right helps build customer engagement and trust. For example, again, an Avalara example would be, we are in the tax compliance business, right? And if prospects who are not even our customers, right, come to us, come to our website, they can get updates on the latest changes in tax without even being a customer. So that could be that starting point. They learn from there, but they eventually need to solve the problem of solving for tax compliance. So that's where we would really come in. So I would say that's how B2B, some of that evolution we have seen, or I have also seen personally from my prior experiences too, that the way we play the game has evolved, and there are multiple aspects to focus on than just the sales journey. Because though the core tenets of customer obsession or customer centricity is the same, the way to get there has changed.
Manav?
Yeah, I think in addition to what Job said, I think what we are seeing initially is that influencers have a big role to play. And I elaborate on that, right? So if you go to an enterprise, the influencers are the consulting companies, Deloitte and Accentures of the world, because they are implementing something perpetually. If you go to large, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, they are perpetually in their account implementing something, some change management, some ERP implementation or HR software implementation. So they become a big influence to the way decisions are made, because they get to the trust with the buyers and the CIOs in the organization. That's one thing I would always, tell prospective founders to focus on, that who is influencing the decision. That is number one. Number two, if you're selling a developer product, a lot of if you go to Instagram or X.com or Twitter, you will see a lot of demos come on there. So that also becomes a massive influencing channel in doing that. And the third is there are small meetups which are happening, especially if you're selling a high-tech or developer-oriented product. SF city is right now humming with a lot of activities where new products are coming every day. So those influences start making a lot of picture. A lot depending on how buyers will start thinking about your product. For example, let's say you have a partnership with OpenAI in an AI era, and I'm standing out and is demoing your product or endorsing, okay, this product is really good. It will make a lot of difference. You will think this AI is working as against you trying to figure out whether it's working or not. So a lot of trust get established to the way influencers or partners talk about you, and not just your product and your salesperson. I will only add that to the process.
How easy is it to reach out to these big consultancies and all that for startups in India?
I think it is a work. I think it is like anything process. It's a sales process within that also, right? You have to talk to the people, reach the right person. Your product offering has to be there. You have to some referenceability. See, for influencer to recommend you, they will have to do their X, right? Otherwise, their reputation will be at stake. So they will take you along with you, make you go through demos. Then they'll get the feedback from the buyers, and then they'll see whether it's really your product is of that quality or not. Your services of the same quality as you're claiming it to be, and of course, how much money can they make along with you? That also plays a part in that. But you'll have to go through that motion in many cases. And also, I think digital channels also really important. So the influencers who are evaluating in YouTube also, if you look at a lot of young people there on YouTube who are evaluating various products, it does give influence. Today, if you want to buy a car, you will definitely go to YouTube and check the review, right? Yeah. So that reviews really work. So the product reviews and who's reviewing it will make a lot of difference.
Job, Avalara also does these things. Can you also reach out to influencers?
Yeah, so we do it at a different level. I mean, social there's no running away from it, right? And in fact, we should, just like we're talking about AI, there's no running away from AI. In fact, we should embrace AI. And similarly with social, right? We do work on social, multiple social handles. There are dedicated teams that work on that. So just double clicking on what Manav said, that is a very important piece. But again, it's not a one size fits all. There will be streams that work for startups really well, and for more larger organizations, they need to figure out their streams that would really influence their business. So the streams would be different, but overall, from a social point of view, absolutely, no questions on that.
Okay. And if you had to place a bet on one strength India will bring to the next phase of global SaaS growth, what would it be?
One strength would be talent. No questions on it. Like I said, right? India's young workforce we have that in no comparison with any other country. I think, India's talent is, like I said earlier, is something that I would hands down bet on. And if I had to bet on something else, I would just our scale of innovation and the example that I shared and even Manav shared on how SaaS has evolved. Our scale of innovation would be the second thing that I would bet on. But it's all fueled by talent, and India has that talent. We need to, of course, now this is very important that we need to nurture, mature. There is enablement, there is leadership coaching. All of that is part of it. But sheer talent and the young workforce, absolutely.
Talent and young workforce, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, all these global CXOs who visit and all that, very impressed. I mean, they all get very excited when they see the young talent in India, very agile, very into. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I remember earlier times when there was this disinterest because of India's population being so large, right? But that is actually our sheer strength, especially with the young workforce that we have for different talent pools that we are looking at in terms of building all of this up.
Okay.
Manav, I'm sure people would love to know, what advice would you give founders building global sales engines from India today?
Okay, this question, I can take that question. I think the one advice is start thinking of sales before you build a product, actually.
Start thinking of sales before you build a product.
Yes. So a lot of times sales is an afterthought. A lot of focus goes, like 100% focus go on building the product. And then suddenly we'll say, okay, how to sell? Let me think about what is the value proposition, what is the best way to present, and then how do I hire for sales. But the sales thought process has to get embedded at the time of seeding the product itself. Because sales also figuring out the sales, who is your ideal customer, what the pain points they offer, what is the best way to reach out to them, what will really attract them when you actually give a demo, has to go as a part of the product thinking and sales process. It has to go hand in hand. A lot of time I've seen founders think sales as an afterthought, saying, okay, we'll build a product and then we'll think of sales. Really, the great sales or great organization built on where actually, if you look at Salesforce, is a great sales and marketing machine themselves, right? To be able to build a $13 billion revenue enterprise. And that has not happened because their product is the best. It has happened because their sales and distribution is the best.
Yeah.
So that has to come in the DNA of the organization. DNA only gets built if you see it at the right time.
Okay. And Job, you want to add? I mean, there are also various sales and channel partners and all that you can go through, is it?
Yeah. So if you look at the evolution of general sales, right? Like earlier, it used to be called direct and indirect. Indirect used to be, your reseller motion, and the direct is, direct to customer. But the indirect motion itself has moved from, or has bifurcated into, resell and referral, where especially in the SaaS ecosystem, right, there is so much of synergies that can be derived from each other's companies, where we can tap into each other's customer base, and that pool can be really sticky. So for example, we do a lot of work with ERPs, right? ERPs are looking for who is the tax compliant solution out there that can make their product sticky. Similarly, we are looking at ERPs because when they go into and they have a wider pool of customers, how can those synergies? So that alliance function of not just resell, but how do we really be their allies and they can be our allies is something that has evolved over time. And I think that is, SaaS has brought that really into this paradigm, where we are not looking at going after different sets of customers, but the sets of customers are the same. We are looking at being sticky with overlaps and synergies that can really be attractive to the customer.
Okay. I know we are almost out of time, but wonderful discussion. India has traditionally not been very great at sales, but increasingly becoming so, as Job said, our youngsters, our talent, their enthusiasm and all that is ensuring that we become very good in sales as well. And Manav said to all the founders there, start thinking about sales from the beginning. It's not just a product matter. Just because your product is great, there's no way that you'll ensure that you'll also get good sales. Salesforce, he says, is a great example of that. So that's the message to all those who are listening. India has become a great sales engine, and to founders, get your sales engine right from the beginning. Thanks a lot, Manav and Job. Really nice having you on this platform. Hope to see you again sometime. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.